Hi, welcome to this week's edition of Blues Talk. Again, Dave, John and myself are going to chat about Leinster's victory against the Scarlets last weekend and look forward to our match against the Ospreys in the RDS, and of course look back at some of the other results as well. Well boys, a bit of a curate's egg of a game. We were 13-0 down after 15 minutes and somehow came back and scored 5 tries.
I would have liked to be in the changing room at half time because they managed to stagger into the changing room not too far behind, but they seemed to come out in the second half like men possessed, and all the rubbish tackling and falling off tackles and became a whole different ball game, and guys like Jordy Murphy and even Rhys Ruddock had a crash bang second half that set them up for a historic victory.
Yeah, it looked like it was going to be the traditional Leinster start to the season where basically we lose quite badly. 13-0, no one was playing well. The guy who ended up man of the match was missing tackles left, right and centre, Jimmy Gopperth. And then second half, well, not even second half, after the first half hour, I think, there was a sea change in the way Leinster played, or certainly in the way they were dealing with Scarlets. And after that, there was no looking back, I don't think.
Yeah,
we'd certainly let them off with the first half an hour after seeing the second half. Yeah,
but we just didn't seem to have any aggression in defence whatsoever. Like, they were just running through us at will, and even when they got the try, it looked a bit dodgy. We didn't seem to ground it. Like, but the yards that they were making through us was scandalous, really.
Aaron Shingler especially.
Yeah.
Just be able to have our number and hit the right, hit the line at the right time.
And like, even whatever about the tackling, like our discipline was so poor. I mean, we had 3 yellow cards given against us, and Dave Carney's was just
2 of them for bad tackling.
Very bad. Like, whatever about having a fight, that's fair enough, nearly. But for 2 of them was just like Hudson didn't even compete for the ball. He just went.
Both Carney's and Hudson's were pretty much inexcusable. They were just pure poor discipline from players who I mean, they're not kids. I mean, if somebody did that in an under 16 match, you'd be really annoyed. A high tackle is a high tackle. Everyone knows anything above the line of the shoulders is a high tackle. Simple as. And if you don't challenge for the ball and you hit into the other guy, and he just jumped into him. Now, in fairness to Hudson, he redeemed himself, but with his try and his performance. But that was very poor. But it was indicative of the way we were playing at the time and how we gradually improved, because we cut the penalty count down. And the great thing was our error count was so low, especially compared to Scarlet's. Scarlet's error count was humongous, and they were very, very poor. They gave away the amount of knock-ons they had. Actually, we'll probably talk about the scrum later, but one of the reasons why there were so many scrums and we got to see the new laws in action so often was because Scarlet's knocked on so much ball.
Yeah, and it was it's just like, when Moore came back, when Moore got the try, like, it just kept us within touching distance, which was important, because at that stage the game could have gone away from us.
We were very lucky with that Moore try. I think they just fell asleep.
Yeah,
it was well executed.
I mean, it was non-existent defence at the front of the line out.
I think the psychological effect of it.
Possibly, yeah. We were close to being perhaps penalised for because there was no Scarlets players in the mall, so.
Well, it was still the same mall, so I mean, it's up to them if they aren't there.
Well, why don't we have a quick look at it anyway?
Yeah, the psychological effect of the try was significant as much as the try itself, because what happened was that Scarlets had played all the rugby, had all the possession, all the territory, were 13-0 up, and then suddenly after this try, they were pinned back to 1 score. It was a massive psychological blow, apart from the fact it was a really good try. It was really nice worked. If you'll see from the when the ball is taken down in the line out, it shifted sideways to move the point of contact away.
You can see the pride on Marty Moore there, trundling back from the line, scoring his first Leinster senior try.
I think as a prop, when you score a try, it's incumbent upon on the entire profession.
Well, he was probably just delighted to touch the ball.
You see it immediately shifts, and they've nobody there. Very actually quite sloppy defence from them on the blind side.
Oh, shocking defence.
No, it was very, very good play, good wedge there. There's been Moore has shifted a certain amount of criticism. I included the conversion because it was just such a cracking conversion from Gopperth. And he kicked, his goal kicking was absolutely sublime. He found the hard ones the easiest ones to convert. Just banged it over.
Just lashed the
Beautiful.
ball
Yeah.
and
Beautiful,
didn't
straight down
deviate.
the middle, yeah.
I mean, he started off and he missed a number of tackles. I think he missed 4 in total, which is a lot. And Jim had said it actually here last week when I was saying how well Goppert had played against Saints. Jim was saying he was a bit worried about his defence, and so I was keeping an eye out for it, and it wasn't worrying in that first half-hour period. But like everything else that Leinster did, that improved after that period of time, and his defence was fine for the remainder of the game. Just interesting you're talking about Marty Moore. The scrums were a significant issue in the game. And I was just thinking about it, and people were saying, "Oh, was the Leinster scrum getting overdone by the Scarlet scrum?" And I was looking at the number. Leinster had, I think, 11 put-ins to 3 or 4 for Scarlets. When under the new regulations, because the hooker has to be hooking, you've got 2 men pushing against 3 in the front row.
Yeah.
So the defensive side does have that advantage. The thing that I think where the laws need tweaking is the ref says scrum half, ball in, and the scrum half has to put it in. So the advantage to the offensive side of knowing when the ball is going in, when the hooker has to strike, has been taken away. So you've got 3 men pushing against 2, and they know when the ball's coming in as much as the 2 men do.
But we were just saying earlier, like when was one particular moment. I think Cronin had. He had his foot up, like in the olden days that would have been a foot up, it would have been an indirect penalty, and Redden seemed to be trying to deflect the ball off his foot that was not really in a striking position.
Well, back in the days when hookers used to hook, both hookers used to hook, and the 2 legs would go up, and it had to be specially called to have an 8-man push, even as the defensive scrummaging team.
Yeah.
Somebody'd have to say, "Right, lads, 8-man push," and away you go, because otherwise both hookers would strike.
But I think we're going to see far more emphasis now on technique of scrum, of props, and maybe hookers as well, more so than just pure brute force. And if you look at the body shapes of props, even that they're so super fit now, all rugby players, but you look at the size of the props, they're quite similar to what they used to look like. They're not as toned, or there's very few of them. Maybe Keane Healy is one of the exceptions that looks like a pure athlete. The rest of them look very almost like barrel shaped men, and maybe that's going to have to change now a little bit, that they're going to have to be more use more technique rather than just sheer brute force.
I think that the great thing about these laws is what they've done is they've revalidated one of the great skills of the game, which was proper. I mean, we all joke about what the props did on the pitch and stuff like that, but it was a real skill of the game. Just getting that marginal advantage over your opposite number that would actually allow your hooker get a cleaner strike on the ball, because that was what the most important thing was to allow your hooker get a good strike on the ball. So that's come back into the game. The thing is now, because all that, if you like, for institutional knowledge is gone, because it's been so long since the hookers had to hook. What you were saying about, say for example, Owen Redden throwing the ball in against the foot, teams are going to be experimenting with all sorts of nefarious tricks until they come round to the realisation that's been there for the best part of 100 years in the game, that the best way to do it is actually just to have a better hooker than the opposition.
Yeah. I mean, it was interesting as well to see the amount of times that Redden was penalised, and he could have been done a lot more, because at one stage Lacey said to Boss that he was going to give him a yellow card if he didn't put it in straight the next time. And you could see the look of surprise on Boss's face, but clearly it had followed from the position.
It is specifically mentioned in the guideline that went out about this, that the offences carry over if they replace the scrum half. That if the scrum half is on his last warning and the new guy comes in, he gets the yellow card.
Well, anyway, one particular guy who was outstanding, I thought, in the game was Jordy Murphy, and he got a try that just brought us back into the lead, I think, in the second half.
Yeah,
I think Jordy is providing some serious competition to the back row players, because he can play 6, 7 and 8.
Absolutely. I think he's nudging ahead of he's probably ahead of Dominic Ryan, and Ruddock is probably nailed on as our 6 behind McLaughlin and O'Brien, but he's got to be pushing him certainly for a bench.
I think so. I think he might be pushing for that number 6 shirt. I think that might be his easiest route into the starting team, because I mean, with all respect to McLaughlin, who I think has been brilliant for Leinster over his career, absolutely brilliant. this guy looks like a force of nature coming through this year.
He reminded me, that try that he just scored there, reminded me looks very similar to a young Sean O'Brien. The way that he has just got the power in the legs to continue, like he gets that ball about 7 or 8 metres out, a guy hanging off him and he just drives over the line.
I think he's probably pacier than Sean. He mightn't have the same brute power, but I think he's got a lot more pace than Sean has.
He had a lot of work to do there as well.
And he may well be a better may well have better ball skills. But you'd expect that of a number 8 anyway.
Mackin did incredibly well to get him the ball in the first place.
Yeah, he did.
Broke a couple of tackles and a lovely little pass.
That was probably Mackin's best game for Leinster. It was nice to see him play so well because, there's been
Let's face it, we're going to need him.
There's been a lot of talk about Brendan Mackin about being, his future, and there's a lot of hype around him. And when he hasn't delivered on that hype immediately, people have been disappointed with Mackin. But the thing to remember is Brendan Mackin's
youngest player in the squad.
Yeah, what is he? 21.
22,
just 22. I mean, that's a very, very young guy. So I mean, the future's still there. And another lovely kick from Goppert, just bent it in, lovely.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, like we've got such embarrassing riches in the back row, really, don't we?
What I was going to say about Jordy Murphy is he's the same height as Sean O'Brien, and that's the one thing that's kind of kept Sean O'Brien out of the 6 jersey and how he's been
as a line-out option.
Jordy Murphy is probably easier to lift, as he's probably not as heavy as Sean O'Brien. But I think that 6 or 7 and 8 are probably more likely where you'll see him than 6.
Yeah.
Unless he's on the bench for the back row and ends up coming on at 6.
Well, I think 7 and 8 would probably be more suited to his natural abilities. But in terms of a route into the team, I think 6, because I mean, at number 7 you've got Shane and Sean, who are, if fit, play,
Not
simple
bad.
as, and then at number 8 you've got Jamie Heaslip. So when he's there, he's going to get picked. So maybe his best route, where he's competing maybe on a more even playing field, perhaps, in terms of, Jamie is currently the Irish captain. He is occasionally the Leinster captain. He's a Lion, etc., etc., etc. Whereas at number 6, there's less of a high profile set of competitors than there is at 7 and 8.
Well, the tactic seems to have been from in the Schmidt era, that we can call it that now that it's over. Sorry, that McLaughlin will start, give us a line-out option, and Sean O'Brien will move across at some point, and Jennings will come on. I'm not sure how the tactics will change if you've 2 6'2" guys and a 6'1" guy and Jamie Heaslip. So I do see somebody like, I think McLaughlin is ideal because he must be 6'5".
Yeah, he's a superb jumper in the line, superb hands in the line out, and is a good messer as well, as we recall from the Toulouse game in 2011.
And he runs hard, he runs straight in.
But the thing was, under Schmidt, he played in every single one of the big games. Started in everyone. Like even when we were all kind of going, he has to go for Jennings in this one to give a bit of balance. He always went for McLaughlin in all of our Heineken games.
It's because Sean O'Brien is so bloody good, no matter where you put him.
Yeah.
And he has to. I suppose you'd say that Heaslip and O'Brien pretty much have to start, and it's what you do with everywhere else is the thing.
Yeah, I think as well Joe had a kind of a fairly fixed tactic, particularly say during 10-11. Not so much in 11-12, but when we won the Heineken Cup against Northampton, the idea seemed to be use the first 45-50 minutes to really just do the horrible hard grunt work, and then on 50 minutes, maybe 60, bring on guys who can take the pace up a bit, because you've already worn down the opposition. And then what you do is you bring on the likes of Jennings, who gets the game moving faster, change the props around a bit, and that was kind of his tactical approach during that period.
And even scrum half too. I mean, many times we see Boss coming on for Redden or vice versa.
So it remains to be seen where Matt O'Connor will stand on that tactic.
Well, I'd say now Matt will have looked at the squad, and if he believes the squad is as strong as we believe it is, and as Joe believed it was, I'd say he'll be of the same opinion, because if you have 23 guys, all of whom can do you a job, then it's a great advantage.
Absolutely.
Because it means you can keep guys fresh as well, for longer.
And like you're talking about the squad there, I mean, it's great to see Fanning coming in there and playing on the wing. Like, he's kind of really come from nowhere. I saw some clips on him on YouTube
when he was in Oz.
Yeah, but he looked very good, and maybe the standard of the particular level that he was playing at there, but he looked head and shoulders above it. But he looked very comfortable there at Pro 12 level in the blue jersey for us.
Absolutely, I think he'd be a very solid guy to have.
And they seem to target him insofar as they kicked an awful lot of ball to him from kickoffs, trying to soften him up. But he managed it very well, and he ran everything back, and he didn't, aimlessly hoof the ball down the pitch. He ran it back and set up the ruck.
Yeah, and he's very good at setting up rucks and getting the ball back.
Yeah.
There's a few in that game where he went into contact and they thought, oh, no, the ball came straight back out.
Yeah. I think perhaps Scarlets probably looked at the guy on top. This is a guy who plays in the equivalent of the Principality League. I mean, he's captain of St Mary's. So they probably thought we could target this guy. The thing about him is, of course, that Fanning has played at that level before. He played with Connacht. He was very unfortunate with injuries and stuff. And he has the grounding because he'd been through the Leinster Academy. And what it shows is that sometimes there are alternative routes into the professional game. Some people either mentally or physically aren't ready for the game at 22. They're just not in that place, and maybe they come to it a little bit later. We know about, say, for example, Reggie Corrigan. For example, he's a guy who came a circuitous route into the Leinster and the Irish team, and maybe that's the same situation for Dara Fanning.
Yeah.
Of course, he has a bit of competition on his hands now.
Yes, I was going to bring it up. Like, obviously, we've signed Laurie from the Western Tigers.
West Tigers, God bless them.
Yeah, and I think it's only going to be a 3-month deal, but he's going to be a handy player to bring in when we need him.
Well, he'd be a useful guy. I mean, it remains to be seen what kind of condition he's in.
Slight understatement on useful guy.
Oh yeah. Well, it remains to be seen what kind of condition he's in.
Well, he's got to be pretty good, Nick, if he's playing at NRL.
Oh, well, that's true. No, that's very true. And West announced today that he'd been released from his contract and he's on a plane at the moment, kind of thing. So, I think he's a good signing. I think he'll do a job for us. He provides, much like Fanning does, something that Leinster have traditionally always had, but haven't had for the last year or two, which is a big guy.
Right.
Big guy on the wing. Somebody who can profit from cross kicks and stuff. I mean, you know how much we used Horgan when he was here.
That's something I was about to say when you were talking about Fanning. I think Fanning and Takiri are roughly the same height. Can either of them deal with the ball up over their head in the way that Shaggy could? Not very many people can. I don't know. It's a question I'm asking.
Well, I think Larry's played 67 times for the Aussies, so he kind of he's been around the block, so he knows. Yeah,
and he's a finisher. He just has this nose for the line that he I've seen him score tries where he's in mid-air and his whole body is out over the sideline and he's touching the ball down while he's still in mid-air. He's an uncanny sense of getting over the line. So that's just alone.
And just to briefly mention, like our other signing, Zach Krishner, who's coming over from.
Oh, you got both his names wrong there.
Zane Krishner.
Kirshner. You're trying to keep the spirit of Jim alive, eh?
Well, I thought he had a great game. I watched that box Aussie game at the weekend, and I thought he had a super game. And he took his try very well, but not alone that. The way he contributed, he ran a lot of dummy lines that drew players, even for the try that
he
eventually sealed it.
For the De Villiers try, the one that kind of put South Africa away. He hits a ruck. There's a kick through, and he hits a ruck. If he doesn't hit that ruck, that try doesn't get scored. It's as simple as that. And that's kind of this is the difference between the winning and losing a game. But it shows the work ethic. I'm not saying hitting the ruck was this marvelous piece of skill or anything. It just shows work ethic. And if a player has that, you've got a good start.
Yeah, it's also we see how he reacts to because he played in the Blue Bulls for quite a while, where kick chase. He's probably a bit been a bit stifled in his playing by their tactics. And maybe he'll, because something I noticed. I just saw the first half of our game back on the RT, and the few line breaks that we made, we actually did some fairly blistering stuff, even though we were playing really badly in defence and we had a really bad first half. And there's a few line breaks where I think Fitzgerald kicked on twice and didn't come to anything, but there's a few very slick passes coming out through. There's still that passing game there.
The ball went along the back line very well.
And we seem to again, like under the Schmidt era, we attacked the narrow side and we overloaded down that side. And again, like for one of the tries, I think it might have been Gothbert's try, that because of they just had numbers and they used the numbers, they didn't butcher it. So easy to butcher a 4-on-2, by running into space.
There's a classic example in the Darren Hudson try, which we'll look at now, of using the narrow side and not butchering the opportunity. Great break here from Geno. And you just see Boss as usual, seems he's not looking that way. Then he realizes, hold on, it's on. And if you notice the way the ball is used, all the players use the ball to take out an opposition man.
It's simple.
Perfect.
Yeah,
It's simple when it's
simple.
done.
It was simple when it's done like that.
Make it look so easy.
Yeah.
I like the look of Darren Hudson as well.
Yeah, I have to
The
say I
little
did as
bits
well.
I
Yeah.
saw of him last year, he looked very good, but he just got badly injured and
Yeah.
it didn't come to much. He's bulked up a lot this year, and he looks like he's a serious prospect.
They all seem to have bulked up. I heard that McFadden put on 6 kilos as well.
Wow,
You know?
Different coaches will have
it's nearly a
different.
stone.
Different coaches will have different, physical requirements of the players. We all know back during the day when Eddie O'Sullivan was coached, the Munster forwards were coming home and Munster were complaining that they were underweight. Leinster backs were coming home and Leinster were complaining that they were overweight because O'Sullivan was trying to go a certain way with his players. So maybe O'Connor has a different approach to how he wants guys' body shapes.
Yeah.
But just in terms of whatever body shapes they are, those skills there.
Go on, Jimmy.
I mean, there was brilliant
Another one
kick,
down
wasn't
the
there? Yeah. There was nothing flash about them, but it was good players taking the right decision at the right time, and that's always the most important thing.
Yeah. And we have a look shortly at the next try as well. Gopper, so we look at this one first, I suppose.
Yeah, you can just see the opportunity's been identified by Boss because he didn't seem to be looking blind at all, and then suddenly he whips it blind.
But there's, as Donald Lennon would say, you could throw a blanket over some of them. Leinster. They were very close. They were bunched up.
But they didn't squander that chance.
No.
Often you see fellas running into the space of their own teammates, and as a result, losing the advantage that you have of a 2-on-1 or a 3-on-2.
The thing I hate is when I see a team and they've created an overload and they've got the overlap, somebody throws a skip pass.
Yeah.
That really annoys me. And three of the guys in that little move, the only back to touch the ball was Hudson when he crashed over. I mean, three of the guys in that move were forwards.
Yeah.
It's very easy. We'd expect a forward not to make the right decision while ball handling, but then of course they have when the forwards are Sean Cronin, who's great with the ball in his hands. Jody Murphy, great with the ball in his
McGrath was
hands.
very good.
McGrath was very good with the ball in his hands. But those are guys who would take the right option in that situation.
Yeah. We look at Jimmy's try now. Just to cap off his
What's
his
everybody's
22
favourite
his
part
22
of this try?
Devin Toner.
Yes,
I thought Devin had a very good game.
he did.
So I thought he had a really, really good game.
He looked committed. He carried well.
It reminded me of
Which is hard for a big
the try he set up against Bath,
yes,
where he had a shorter gallop but nicer hands. This was a longer gallop.
Here we go. Will I go outside? Nah, go inside. There you go.
But
Good night and thank you.
How often would you see a second row running in and taking the
Almost
contact?
Never.
You know?
Almost. That's the instinct of a second row, is to go in and take the contact.
Yeah.
He managed to do enough just to commit the man, and he had options inside him, outside him. He obviously took the right one because it looked like he was going to go outside. You'd nearly say he dummied.
When you see it on replay, you can actually see. I think it's from this angle. When it zooms in on Dev, you can see Jimmy's on his inside shoulder and he's constantly
Calling
talking to him.
Yeah, there you go.
But Godfrey did really well
Perfect
because
timing.
he actually
Had to
gave
skip
the ball
back
to
inside.
Toner in that, and then he still kept up in support
On the loop,
and created the man inside.
Yeah, no, I have to say I was really impressed with Gopperth. I mean,
He put on the afterburners there, and
Yeah.
then he slowed up and stepped inside that last defender.
what I was impressed. Apart from the things we knew he could do, we knew he could kick the ball. I mean,
Yeah.
but the width and the accuracy of his passing surprised me. He can really fling a ball out. And I'd say Ian Madigan might have been a little bit worried because that was his unique selling point, as it were. The way he moves the back line, how far and how hard he can pass the ball and get guys moving outside.
Kiwis always have good basics.
Oh, they always
Doesn't
do.
matter
Yeah,
who they
yeah.
are or how kind of a journeyman you consider them. They are, and he's no. You wouldn't consider him a journeyman, but they always have good basics. They can always catch. They can always pass. They can always do whatever it is their position requires.
Well, the last journeyman Kiwi out half we signed turned out to be pretty good. So
Yeah, he wasn't bad, all right.
Mr. Hallwell. So
Yeah. But it looks like this team, similar to when we had a team that was under Schmidt, they seem to want to play attacking rugby, and which is great to see because it kind of keeps within the tradition of Leinster rugby of wanting to run the ball and being an attacking team.
we do like to move it.
We do. So why don't we have a quick look at Dave Carney's try? Again, another guy who kind of redeemed himself after a silly sin binning earlier on.
Yeah.
Well, this was to a certain extent straightforward, except it was just really good passing.
Mm-hmm.
Guys kept their width, and then if you watch Mackin drifts outside his man beautifully. There,
Yeah,
and that's something we used to.
stayed on his feet well too.
Yeah, but that's something we're used to seeing in the number 13 jersey from Leinster. The number 13 drifting outside his man. So it's nice to see the newer guys have picked up that skill.
And it was a lovely pass that kind of made that cut
Oh
out.
yeah.
I don't know where Dave Kearney's going to fit in now with well, that's the wrong way to put it, but I don't know whether he's always been the second full back kind of thing, whereas now Kirshner is going to fulfill that role, and all of a sudden there's Takuri, although he's short term signing, who's going to be on the wing. So where's Dave going to specialise? I'd like to see him specialise, perhaps on one of the wings.
Well, the thing is, I mean, hopefully we're going to have plenty of rugby this year. They're all going to get used. I mean, we've had one match and we're already a winger down.
Yeah.
So, I'd say there's plenty of opportunities for everyone involved.
We've also gone from looking really, really short of wingers and outside backs in general, and then Owen O'Malley retires. But we unearthed Dara Fanning and we bring in Lottie Takiri, and all of a sudden I was having a quick look through the numbers, and we've got 4 players in almost every position if you include the academy. The squad is very well spread out across all the positions, and we're now no longer in trouble for wingers. All of a sudden we seem to, because we are going to lose either Fitzgerald or McFadden
or
into
both.
the 13, or both alternating with Mackin.
Well, that's the thing that's important, because during the autumn internationals, Six Nations, we could lose both Carneys and those 2 chaps you mentioned. So there's gonna be guys there. There's gonna be opportunities for Darren Hudson, for Darren Mackin, or Dara Fanning. Obviously, Zane Kirshner will still be there. Hopefully, he's not gone during the autumn internationals. I don't see him being selected during the autumn internationals. So it's gonna be interesting to see how the whole selection thing, particularly in those back 3 places, kind of pans out.
Yeah, it will. So anyway, why don't we have a look back on for some of the other results at the weekend. Obviously, Munster beat Edinburgh in a fairly impressive enough performance. I think I was surprised at how Edinburgh kept in the game for so long, because Munster just seemed to want to score well against them.
Yeah, Edinburgh were, in some ways, they were unlucky. They lost. They got slaughtered, but they seemed to, anything good they seemed to do, they'd give away the restart, and Munster be in again for another try, and
They were dogged but dumb.
Yeah.
Munster were too good for them.
Absolutely.
Beat them easily enough. Didn't have to do too much to win it either. I mean, you always had the sense that if Edinburgh did get any closer, I mean, they were always kept, a try, 10 points. That gap was always maintained. And if it got any closer, you always had the feeling that Munster had another gear or 2 to go up to. That would just pull them away again.
It's hard to learn anything from the game in fairness about either side. Edinburgh have Munster are away for the next 2 weeks in Italy, and they're having a little mini holiday with a squad of 33 players, I heard, which might be good for them, especially obviously if they win both. It won't be so good if they lose either of those matches, but you'd have
which
to
they have in the past.
Well, they have, but you'd have to expect that they're not going to do that this year.
Treviso looks serious this year.
But Treviso they were beaten by Ospreys.
Yeah.
And I was sort of hoping that Treviso might have done us a favour, just like Dragons did against Ulster, to sort of take the what's the probables of the top 4, top 6, take them down a peg or 2. But as you were saying, Treviso, they were beaten though, by Ospreys.
Yeah, but there wasn't that much in it, and Ospreys, I think, have gotten rid of a lot of the. Every year we say this, that Ospreys have gotten rid of a lot of the chaff that goes around the whole Ospreys brand, and that they've got a set of players now. But they seem to have it this year. Towards last season and this season, this is the second season for this particular team, as it were, and they seem to have developed a bit more of a character. Now, they mightn't be as gloriously talented as the Hooks or the Hensons or whatever, but they've certainly a lot more character. So, for them to go away and win in Treviso, which is always difficult. I mean, we've never found it too easy to go over there.
There's no depth, though.
No, they don't. They have 15, maybe 17 guys, and that's it. After that, they're in trouble. But I don't see Munster losing to Treviso. I just don't see it happening. But it'll be a stiff test. Zebra's another matter entirely. I think they've fallen back, actually, from what I've seen.
Well, I didn't see them, so
They were beaten by Connacht.
I only saw very brief highlights on the web. It's hard to know with Zebre. It's hard to know with Zebre away from home. I've got a feeling that they're targeting 1 or 2 wins at home this year, and that's all they're targeting.
Well, Ironi beat Munster.
Well, that's true, yeah.
Zebre aren't going to do it, but
No.
you just never know. They might give them a bit of a fright at some point in the game.
Yeah, and the other fixture was Glasgow beating Cardiff. So it looks
So
like
just to go back to Dragons against Ulster, sorry, we kind of skipped over it. We said before the season started that of all the Welsh provinces, Dragons looked to be the one that had done the best work in the off-season in terms of signings and stuff. So this is kind of a rubber stamp to them for the signings they've made and stuff that they actually did go out to be. I mean, it was an unrestrained Ulster team, but Ulster is still a very good side. You'd have to question. I mean, Paddy Jackson missed 3 from 4.
Yep.
And you have to wonder, without Ruan Pienaar there, how much trouble can Ulster get themselves into on occasion?
Mm-hmm. Well, there was the guy there that was it McElwain, the guy that was kicking when we were up in Ulster for the pre-season, and he looked fairly handy off the tee. You have to imagine somebody step, although he's a 10 as well, so he's not going to be on the field at the same time. But I think they do have a couple of other kickers in the squad, and maybe it's time to give Paddy. Like on one hand, yes, you want to give him all the exposure, but and get his kicking on. But on the other hand, you know, if he's still, this is a year and a half down the line, and if he's still not knocking them over, you know, is it time to, like, you've got a league to win as well, you know, is it time to look to Plan B and develop another kicker in the back line?
I think they should just tell Paddy, look, you're going to start the majority of the games this season, but we're not going to put the kicking on top of you.
it's similar to what happened to Madigan and Leinster.
Exactly.
Let him just develop
Let
his
him
game.
play himself in.
And that's the difference in how they were both developed. Madigan's a couple of years older as well, and people used to say, people from other provinces used to say,
Madigan can't
"Oh,
kick."
Madigan, he can't kick or anything. He's rubbish." And you know, they didn't realise that he was being he had Isa and McFadden ahead of him for kicking duties when Sexton wasn't there. And it was like Schmidt was just bringing him on,
Nurturing
the
him.
good parts of his game, and then when he's got all that mastered, he's up to speed. Now give him the kicking duties, and as soon as they did, boy, can he kick!
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. And of course, the other match we were just going to say was Glasgow beating Cardiff 22-15. Like, once again, it looks like that there is sort of, you know, the Ospreys won, Leinster won, Glasgow won, and
Munster won.
Munster won. So it looks like once again, like the league is kind of splitting between the top 6 and the bottom
Give
6.
it a minute.
Well, no, I mean, like, it's just traditionally, like,
Yeah.
there's been a core of about 5 teams that have constantly been in the top 6. You know, and there's always one season that someone will jump up there, whether it's Scarlets one year or, you know, but it seems that.
Glasgow were down near the bottom a couple of years ago,
Yeah, but
and so were Ulster.
Two years
not
ago,
many
Glasgow jumped into that top 6 for the first time, and have stayed there since, because I think
They
that-
kind of superseded Glasgow or Edinburgh.
yeah,
you know,
Edinburgh were regulars in
yeah.
that position, so they were. I mean, people forget that Edinburgh team was a very good team and a very attractive team to watch as well. Actually, when Colin Patterson was playing, or not Colin Patterson, what's his name? Patterson, the
Mick Patterson,
fullback come winger,
Osvaldo Patterson,
come out half used to play for them.
uh,
It doesn't matter anyway. Him,
Dick Patterson,
but they were an attractive team to watch. Chris Patterson, that's it. You just keep going,
Anyway.
H that. But they were an attractive team to watch as well as been relatively successful. They were a good team to watch. They seem to have fallen off a cliff. I mean, they really have fallen off a cliff. And Glasgow, Gregor Townsend looks to be a fairly astute
everybody
coach.
thought he was a joke signing, and
Yeah.
look what he did.
They kept their players, which was the thing everyone was worried about. Would they keep their players? They managed to keep their important players.
Yeah.
And now they're going to push on this year. I think they're very good.
Barkley was the only one that lost
Yeah,
to the
yeah.
Scarlets.
Yeah, but they seem to be more tuned in. Like, you know, they're not going to get huge crowds. They're playing in a stadium that, you know, you get 5,000 at it. It looks full.
Looks big,
There's an atmosphere there. You get 5 or even 10,000 in Murrayfield, and it's, you know, the Elephant's Graveyard.
What's the good news this week, boys? Glasgow have to go travelling to Ravenhill, so one of them has to lose.
Yeah,
And if they don't, it's a draw, which
Somebody's
suits
going
us
to take
too.
points off the other anyway.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So be interesting. I'd like Ulster to win this one and Glasgow not to get a bonus point.
Yeah,
Would be
just spread out the love.
the
a bit.
Leinster result of the night.
Yeah, so anyway, we look forward to our game. We obviously play the Ospreys, which is a bit of a precursor to our Heineken Cup games as well. And it's our first game back in the RDS, so which is good as well after, you know, whatever, 15 weeks.
I wonder how expensive the pints will be this year.
Wow. I don't know. We don't drink.
Just make sure you bring your daughter along, because we might have to pledge her over for a tray of pints. Because at this stage they're looking for your firstborn.
Exactly. Yeah. So anyway, we've been drip fed back in our internationals from the Lions as well. Talk of McFadden, he had to pull out. It was an 11th hour
Last 2 weeks.
withdrawal for both games.
Yeah, it was a week too soon for him. It's hard to know.
I'm just hoping, like Luke, obviously was only played about the first half or 50 minutes maybe last.
He's allegedly okay.
Yeah.
They're going to check him later in the week. Bit of a groin strain. And
I can't see them risking him though.
Well,
that was a hamstring, I believe.
I was surprised with the strength of the back line we actually had available to us. Considering I was surprised that we had Dave Carney and Darcy available to us, for example.
Yeah.
So you have those guys. I'd say Madigan will probably start.
Yeah, well, might bring him on off the bench.
Yeah. Could
That's
use him at
possibly
12.
what I do. You could do anything.
Oh, bets are off with a new coach. I mean, that's all.
And both himself and Goppert can also play 15.
Yeah.
Which,
Well, they have played
Sky's the
15.
limit.
One wonders how
Okay.
how effective they are at that
well,
position.
it was,
I thought Madigan did. He did
a lot.
okay. He did okay during last season, but I wouldn't put him as our
He was a 15
third or
in
fourth
school.
choice. Yeah, well, he was, but sure, he's a
He
grown up
played
now.
12 as well as he did in
I was at Gotham school, but you don't see me with me. I've no nail varnish on now. You don't. I wouldn't see him as a first rank 15. Not with the talent that's available to Leinster. It's just a matter of where you use him. You've got him. You've got Goppert. He played at 12 a couple of times towards the tail end of the season in big games.
For Ireland too.
And played for Ireland as well. So that's an option if Matt O'Connor works on the basis of get all our best players on the pitch and let them work it out kind of thing. I don't think he will. I think he'll play pretty much the same back line, might switch the half-backs around.
Yeah, for tomorrow or for Saturday.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'd like to see Boss starting and Redden on the bench, or maybe even Cooney on the bench. Guy's got to get a bit of game time.
Yeah,
somewhere.
I think so.
Or Luke McGrath, after his amazing showing against that team in the RDS a
Yeah.
few months ago, might be the man for the bench spot. You just, again, new coach. Who knows?
Yeah.
There's talk Sean O'Brien could be back for it.
I think it might be. I genuinely think he might be another week or two out.
He had an
I
operation,
agree.
didn't he, during the summer?
He had an operation almost immediately on return from the Lions, so
I don't think you're going to see him, but I'm
No.
just saying that they're saying he's available.
but he's certainly been mentioned in dispatches.
Yeah. McLaughlin will have to come back. Outside of that, I don't know who Leo Cullen maybe on the bench.
Leo Cullen, I'd say on the bench. I'd say you'll see McCarthy bounced up to a starting position alongside Devon Toner, which
think
That's
I'll
what I'd
actually
like.
look forward to seeing.
And Quinn Rue is out. I think he twisted
Quinn
his
Rue's
ankle.
out, yeah.
He fell over in his ankle, and Bent is out with a neck injury, I believe.
Yeah, so I don't really see too many changes from this week. I mean, tight head. I'd say we see McGrath start again. I'd say we see Cronin start again. Depends what he does at loose head. The two locks we've mentioned. Don't see there being huge
I think the
difference.
halfbacks will change.
I think the halfbacks will change, but I don't think that, apart from that, I don't think there'll be massive changes.
Would you start Madigan, or would you give him half an hour off the bench, or would you give him the second half? Or
I just don't think he's played since the match against Canada, and why not throw him in now?
straight away start
Yeah,
him?
start him. And then
Goppert's played.
See how much you get of him. Yeah.
Yeah, Gopper's played pretty much 3 full games so
Yeah.
far, so it might be time to give him a rest.
give him a bit of a rest. Start Madigan, and then if after an hour he's blowing out his ass, then bring on Gopperth. You know.
Well, anyway, that's
That's us.
that's us. But there was
What about the Ospreys?
with the Ospreys, it was hard to know really what those guys are going to do. What team? What if they're going to have their lines back?
Well, they had a couple on the bench last
Yeah,
week.
they had Wyn Jones on the bench, didn't they?
I
Alan
don't
Wyn
think
Jones.
so, no.
Did they not?
And there's talk they might not have him this week either.
Mm.
But the Adam Jones they had.
Yeah.
And they'd. Did I hear Ryan Jones got hurt?
Did he?
They're all Joneses and Williams.
Yeah.
God,
It's very hard to keep track of those Welsh.
the Williamses are all on the Scarlets and
Yeah,
the Joneses
yeah.
and the Ospreys. But they have a handy enough backline with your man Eli Walker and Beck and Bishop.
Beck
in
and Bishop.
midfield.
Oh, they've plenty of talent. I mean, there's no shortage of. I mean, and
The South African Swedish guy is out again.
yeah,
Or whatever. What's his name? Hanno Dirksen.
Hanno Dirksen.
Sounds Swedish.
The
but
guy
he's
who
South
always frightens the bejesus out of me is Richard Fussell.
Yeah,
He always seems to play very well against us.
he does. And they hate him over there.
Do they
The
really?
Ospreys fans think he's muck, and they're always giving out about him starting. And I just can't understand it. Maybe it's that he only plays well against us, but He always looks handy at full back.
Yeah, he's a player that I always fear is probably too strong a word, but he's a player I always worry about when he's playing against us. Welsh fans are strange anyway.
Well, I can see them wanting to put a bit of a marker against us, particularly with the Heineken Cup, and just want to put a bit of doubt in our minds coming over to the RDS and not being intimidated by playing at home.
Might be a bit too early in the season for that for the Welsh teams. Ospreys seem to get serious after Christmas.
Well, they want to get serious before October.
Yeah, well, they always do. I mean, that's just the way it is. I mean, it's hard to know what the Ospreys, like we said earlier, if they have their heads right, they have the ability to at least, cause they have the ability to beat this Leinster team.
Absolutely. Yeah.
If they have
Cup Leinster, is
I wouldn't have thought so.
If they get even 2 injuries,
yeah,
especially in the back line, Heineken Cup Leinster will take them to bits.
Yeah.
But if they don't,
Who knows?
it's no given over in Swansea in October. I wouldn't be putting that one in the bank before I saw the teams.
Yeah. I mean, Ospreys, there's no other team in the league, and I actually include Munster in that, who seem to have our number the way that the Ospreys do. I mean, we've said it so many times that somewhere in an office in the Ospreys organisation there's a folder and they dust it off once, twice a year, and it's how to play Leinster, and it seems to work for them because they really upset the way we like to play. They really, really do, and it's very, very, very ill-mannered of them.
In a season, I think it was 2 years ago, where we lost 4 games out of 33 in the whole season.
Yeah.
All competitions, 3 of them were to the Ospreys. What an incredible statistic! If that doesn't impress Ospreys fans, then I don't know what will.
And it doesn't, because nothing ever will.
Yeah, well, we were talking about the Heineken Cup today. The English clubs, Premiership clubs, shot a salvo over the bow of the Heineken Cup of the ERC, basically saying that between themselves and the French, they want to go it alone. Obviously, there's a meeting tomorrow with the ERC and all the other partners, so it's just obviously them getting their retaliation in first.
They don't want to go it alone. That's the last thing they want, because if they go it alone, the competition's over. And because an Anglo-French competition is about as exciting as the Anglo-Italian Cup was in soccer, if anyone remembers that competition. And I tell you, there are people who are at games who don't remember the competition. They don't want to go it alone, but this is their bargaining chip that they've laid down, that they're prepared to go strike off with their good and historic friends, the French, who have never let them down in the past at all, ever. That they're going to do it, and they're going to. You see what the French have said. All the French have actually said is, we don't want to be in a competition that doesn't have the English in it, so we're looking at organising one. The English seem to think that says we want to be in a competition only with the English. It's it's semantics, but they're important.
It was interesting in the press release today, though, that they did say that they were going to have this Anglo-French Cup with some invitational teams.
They'll try and get the Welsh on
now,
side.
I think the Welsh secretly always want to be part of some sort of broadened English league.
The Welsh always secretly want to be English. Full stop.
I wouldn't go that far now. But
I would.
I wouldn't.
But they certainly, I think for them, they see
the whole train spotting colonised by wankers thing seems to applies much more to the Welsh than it does to the Scots.
But the thing about the Welsh clubs is, Dave, that they've only got, say if you take, say, Cardiff, for instance, they've got 3 home derbies a year. You might get 5,000 instead of 10,000 at a home match against Leinster. If they play a Bristol, a Bath, a Gloucester, any team that's in their neck of the woods, they're going to get a huge, there's huge
but they
interest.
do, and they don't. They play them every year in the Anglo-Welsh Cup,
their
and
A
it's
team,
empty.
Dave, their A team play Bath or Gloucester or whoever's A team. It's not their full strength teams play one another. Like that's, let's get that off the table.
Yeah, well, it is a bit of a local derby. Bristol, Gloucester. If you're going to stretch it, even Leicester, Northampton, Worcester. They're all local enough.
Yeah.
So yes, logistically it could make sense for the Welsh to have some.
Financially, it'll be a disaster for them.
I don't know. I mean, how financially plausible is it for them to come up to go to fly to Edinburgh, fly to Glasgow, fly to Dublin, fly to Belfast, fly to Limerick or Cork, fly to Galway?
Because for start, the crowds are better anyway when they come over here. Ospreys have us in the Heineken Cup. It'll be their biggest crowd since they last had an Irish team in the Heineken Cup. Irish teams are where the money is. I mean, they bring fans to a town that no other team does. I mean, do you think the burgers of Northampton are going to be as excited about the arrival of Brive for an Anglo-French Cup as they are about Leinster coming over this Christmas?
Well,
Not half.
I just think that the English don't have the English, or the PRL I should say, rather than the English, because we're at risk.
Yeah, no, well, that's an important.
We're giving out about the English. We're at risk of becoming xenophobic here.
Oh, no, I'm not at risk of it. I'm not a xenophobe. I'm a misanthrope.
We won't get into semantics. But,
I hate everyone.
I think they just basically don't know what to do. So they're all mouth and trousers. They're shooting their mouth off, and I don't know what they think it's going to accomplish. But I'm pretty sure that whatever it is, it's not going to accomplish what they think it's going to accomplish.
Yeah, but you wonder though if it's the Heineken Cup is the only game in town for Irish rugby. Like, you know, we can go and we can play the Pro 12. Like, but what's our alternative to play the league against the Pro 12 teams, and then to play them in a European Cup, the exact same teams that we play in at the league.
Financially, the English can afford to sit it out much easier than the Irish
Like,
can.
like Leinster have 12,000 season ticket holders. We have 12,000 season ticket holders because the majority of them are only interested in going to the very big Pro 12 games and the Heineken Cup matches, and they really can't. I mean, you can see by how many will be
at
at
the Glasgow game last year, the semi-final of the Pro
Yeah.
12.
But even if you look, like, we're going to play Ospreys on Saturday, and if you look at the amount of people that are going to be at the Ospreys on Saturday compared to the match against the
It'd be
Ospreys,
reasonable.
well, I would.
Yeah.
There's 14,000 tickets sold, so that means there's 12,000 season tickets. So there's 2,000 tickets sold.
I'd say
Yeah, I'd say they'll sell another 2,000. You know,
English clubs
it's the
and
first
to a
game
lesser
of the
extent
season.
Welsh clubs need cash flow constantly. They do, because it's their only source of income is their cash flow. Irish clubs don't. Irish clubs do have the safety net underneath them of the union. When I say clubs, I mean provinces. So there is
The Union aren't doing so well. at
the
moment
union
either.
are doing fine. They're playing the bail booked, but I mean, at the end of the day, they're talking. Say, for example, all those 10-year tickets that they say we can't sell, they're still going to sell them
Yeah.
on a per match basis. Now they're not going to make
Spend money on advertising.
they're not going to make as much profit on each seat, but they're still going to make a profit on each seat.
The thing about the profit on each seat, as you're talking about, Dave, is that they're getting the money up front.
Yeah, well,
Not
that's the
having
big
to
advantage
wait
of it.
10
And
years.
they're, and they're also getting a huge whack of money. I mean,
Yeah.
it
Well,
works
the-
out as something like 250 quid a match or something.
Oh yeah. No, it is ultra profit, but it's still. I mean, they're still not going to lose money on any of those seats. But you know, the RFU have behaved very ignorantly. There's a certain post-colonial attitude to it.
Not the PRL.
Sorry, not the RFU. No, you're correct me there. It's the PRL. I mean, what they sent out today was basically an invitation to choose the position you will be arse fucked in. I mean, that's basically what it was. We will invite
Little
other.
charmer.
What? I know. Well, that's. I mean, call it as you see. I mean, that's what it is. It will be open for other teams to come in. Do you know what? Do you know what the other teams that come in? They'd be like Richard Hammond. You know, you've got Clarkson and the hairy guy who wishes he was gay but can't admit that he is. Who are the big guys, and they're the real men. And you've got Hammond on the outside, kind of go, "Oh, me, be my friend," you know, because he's never really had any real friends. And that's what the guys who join this competition would be like. They'd be like the little snidey rat-faced boy who hangs around with the bullies, you know, throws a few snide digs in when the bullies are doing their business. But really, he's really scared that there'll be an even more snidey, even more rat-faced boy who'll come along and he'll take his position.
Well, I think the problem is no matter who, like we're painting the PRL as panto villains, and you know, and probably the LNR.
I don't think that they're panto villains. I think they're evil.
Possibly, but what I think they are is they're only concerned about the clubs, which
to a certain
that's-
extent is
that's
their
their
niche.
gig.
Yeah, no, that's a fair point.
you know, it's always going to be difficult to get two sets of officials from the French and the English clubs to agree with 6 sets of union officials, including their own unions.
Well, you see, that's
They can't even agree with their own unions.
it is an important kind of difference to make, that the clubs are, you know, concerned for the clubs because that's what they are. It's their raison d'etre to be concerned for themselves,
Exactly.
whereas the unions are concerned for the game. Again, that's their raison d'etre. The thing is, what will the European proposals put forth by the by PRL and LNR do for the game in Europe? Will it be A, good, or B, bad? It'll be bad.
Well,
Will it A,
They don't
expand,
care.
or B, contract the game? It'll contract the game. They don't care in the short term. But in the long term, when they're looking to expand the game, and everybody's sick and tired of watching Leicester versus Claremont, Leicester versus Leinster, Leicester versus whoever, and they're looking, well, where's the game in Germany? It's gone because they didn't do anything about it. Where's the game in Spain? Where's the game in Italy? Even it's gone because of the way that they treated it. So it's incumbent upon them for their own self-interest.
But is it any use? Is like the Heineken Cup's going on for now for what 15, 18 years. What have the Italian clubs brought to the table? Like the very, very odd victory, maybe against the Biarritz or
Yes,
But what have they like? What has it done to the game in Italy when you constantly go? If you're a supporter of whether it was just say you're a supporter of Treviso, you go and you watch your team getting perpetually beaten every single game that they play, and that the team that the because of the way that there's two Italian teams in each group or two groups. That there's going to be, that's the group generally where the two qualifiers come from. So they don't really bring, and what have the Scottish teams done? With the exception of Edinburgh a couple of years ago when they got, what did they bring to the table? In fact, you could even argue, what have the Welsh done?
What did the Irish bring to the table up until, say, 99?
The thing was only going for 4 years at that stage.
I know, but it took a certain, well, the provinces have been going for 130 at that stage. I mean, it took a while for it to build up, and the thing is, you can't just say, what are you going to do for me now? You have to look at the long-term prospects of the game and the long-term prospects of the game on the continent in general. Because, I mean, if you don't do that, what will happen is you'll just have contraction. We'll take your example. So what you do is you say, well, the Italians haven't really done anything. I mean, there's nothing going to happen. So what we'll do is
should it not be the best competition? Should not be a competition made up of the best clubs instead of a sop to some sort of...
They are the two best clubs. They're the two best clubs in Italy.
It depends on what you want.
The two best clubs in Italy are probably two of the bottom four teams in the Pro 12.
It's a European competition. That's the whole point. The point of it is to be a European competition.
But if you take that point and move it on to say something like the Champions League, like the Irish teams get into it, but they don't get in at the same level, and unless they do extremely well, they don't get through until they don't play against the big boys.
I would love for the game of rugby to expand it enough across the continent that we could have a situation where we'd have qualifying rounds and pre-qualifying rounds. Under the proposal of the PRL and the LNR, that will never happen.
But hold on.
Because they're not trying to expand the game to bring that
but
situation
what they maybe
into being.
should do, as they did a couple of years ago, they actually used to have a playoff between the Italian runners-up and
the ninth Welsh side or whatever it was. Yeah.
And maybe if they did something like that, rather than having there's two, like only three Irish teams get in. Like the three Irish teams have won it, and in the last 7 years, an Irish team has won it 5 times, and an Irish we get one more representative in the competition than Italy, who have never got out of the group. That Scotland have got out of the group once. That Wales have 3 guaranteed as well. Like Llanelli initially got out of the pool stages, but very rarely. Like when was?
But what have England done in recent years? I mean, using that same argument, I mean, what have England done? I mean, why should England have representatives?
They have won it a number of times.
Yeah, in the past. Not recently.
Once in 9 years.
They have 6 representatives. Do they deserve 6 representatives? No, they do not. Do they deserve even 4? If you're going to use that argument, you have to carry that argument along its
and
logical
if you're going
course.
to use the argument of who takes the league seriously, and all those bloody Italian teams don't take it seriously, or who takes the Heineken Cup seriously, there's only about 3 French teams that take the Heineken Cup seriously, and what we get accused of over here of being the Rabo teams, they're able to rest their players and they don't have to try hard, and the French rest their players constantly. Do the PRL give out about that? No, because they see the LNR as their buddies and their bedfellows, which to some degree they are.
But just to go back in terms of the game, say we were to restrict, just to take your example where we say to Italy, okay, we're going to shift you guys down to the Amlin, right? What you're trying to do is you're trying to grow the game, so what you have to do is provide professional pathways and an attractive sport to young people in Italy. They're not going to really be interested in playing for, in a second-rate sport that's in a second-rate competition. And you're trying to bring them up through. So you've got less people playing the game, less people coming through the professional ranks, which means the teams become weaker exponentially year on year. It becomes self-defeating instead of the opposite way of, which is where Italy are now. You see their teams, I mean, they're not great, but their age grade group teams are beginning to compete in the under-20 Six Nations, for example, at the under-20 World Cup. So it's a knock-on effect. The advantage of the Heineken Cup and the Rabo Pro 12 to Italian rugby won't be seen for 5 years, but in 5 years' time it'll be obvious to everyone.
Well, it boils
so that'll be 24 years of them being in the Heineken Cup.
Well, it boils down to the simple thing.
If that's how long it takes.
Do you want a European club competition above all else. If you do, then there's something to be gained by the PRL suggestions that yes, we should have all the best teams, and yes, or do you, if you do that, do you mind coming back in a few years and having, instead of a Six Nations, a Four Nations? Because let's face it, the Scottish and the Italians aren't really up to it much, and why don't we just kick them out and sure we'll just play each other, and you're just going to end up into that. Rugby is going to go into this contraction. Whereas okay, there are teams getting a buy into the teams like Zebre coming out of nowhere, and you also brought up the Celto-Italian playoff that used to be there. Don't forget that was between the third Italian team and the fourth Welsh region. So it wasn't like that they had to do that to get their second team in.
Mm-hmm.
It was when they decided to join the Rabo, which they're paying $3 million for the year for
the honour of.
When they decided to do that, they took their best team, Treviso, and they concentrated their resources in what was in Ironi as a second team. They decided what to do with they could have left their Pro 10 or whatever their competition is called and tried to get teams in from that, but they saw it as being better for the game as a whole. They
kind of got two franchises,
and for people to turn around now and say, well, they've only got two teams, why don't we kick one of them out and put them in the Annan? Because then they could go back to having 10 teams and maybe get two of them in, because if you're talking percentages, we get 100% of the Italian teams in. We don't.
The interesting thing is about one of the kind of the bullet points on the presentation, if you like, of the PRL proposal is expanding the competition throughout Europe. And I looked at that. They don't actually mean playing. What they mean is taking games to fancy European cities who'll pay money to get supporters in as a tourist. That's actually what they mean. They don't actually mean getting more. They don't actually mean say we're going to take the game to Germany. They don't mean develop rugby in Germany.
Well, that's someone like Nigel Ray, clearly, who wants to.
What they mean is play a game in Berlin. We can all get pissed on cheap beer.
Well, what they've done, in fact, is they've consolidated. They've used the fears of the English fans, where they're saying exactly what you've said about Scottish teams not doing anything and getting in, Italian teams. Some of them you could say are justified,
and some of them are justified. Some of them are justified.
With some of those things, but they've taken those things that their fans will roll in behind, and they've used them to justify a bit of a grab for power and control and money. And they said, oh yeah, well, we fiddle the thing so you actually get 20 quid more. We get another 6 million or something, but you'll be doing better. You'll be getting a smaller slice of a bigger cake. It's and English fans are kind of rowing in behind them because they're feeling a sense of outrage about how dare these people come in, and some of those concerns are justified, and that's what makes it worse, because it's been exploited.
What they've done is the PRL have actually been very clever. They've taken elements that aren't brilliant about the Rabo. The fact of the matter is, I mean, there are really only, as you said earlier, 5 or 6 teams that are
going to win it.
That are going to win it because they're the good teams in it. And they've taken that and say, well, should the Rabo, they don't even have to try. I mean, we've had to bloody well work. It took us 3 years to win the bloody thing last year. That was the third year trying. If anyone says we didn't have to try to win that, I'd love to see you say it to one of the players, because you get a punch in the snot.
Well, the other thing about it is that there's 4 nations taking players out come Six Nations time. So there's only one team coming out of the other 2 leagues, and with your cynical hat on, PRL hat on, you're going to say, well, that makes their league so easy to win, because in our league we've got all the bottom clubs who haven't lost any players coming along and trouncing us. Whereas you guys, even the Italian teams are losing.
I'd be even more cynical. I'd say the PRL are looking at that and seeing that as a strength of our league. And that's one of the reasons why they're a bit worried about what the Irish teams in particular. Because the guys who play during the Six Nations and during the Autumn Internationals are guys who at the end of the season feed in. They played really well and feed in. Next season they're starters. It's almost there's almost a development element built into our league that isn't there in theirs. Now, maybe that's a bad thing. Maybe it's a good thing.
Welsh did the same thing. They just export all their players to France.
Yeah.
And then develop the next level behind them anyway.
Well, whatever way, I'm sure it's going to lead to a lot of interesting debate. Anyway, thanks very much for watching, and thanks very much to John and to Dave. Cheers.